soldiers tried to clear the narrow streets, but the crowd pressed in to see the man condemned to die on Calvary. He was bleeding from a beating. There were stripes upon his back, and he wore a crown of thorns upon his head, and he bore with every step the scorn of those who cried out for his death. Via Dolorosa, called the way of suffering. Like a lamb came the Messiah, Christ the King. But he chose to walk that road out of his love for you and me. Down the Via Dolorosa, all the way to Calvary. Por la Via Dolorosa, triste día en Jerusalén, los soldados le abrían paso a Jesús, mas la gente se acercaba para ver a quien llevaba aquella cruz. Por la Via Dolorosa, que es la vía del dolor, como oveja vino Cristo, Rey y Señor, y fue Él quien quiso ir por su amor, por ti, por mí, por la Via Dolorosa al Calvario y a morir. The blood that would cleanse the souls of all men made its way to the heart of Jerusalem. Down the Via Dolorosa, called the way of suffering. Like a lamb came the Messiah, Christ the King. But he chose to walk that road out of his love for you, for me. Down the Via Dolorosa, all the way to
Luke chapter 23, verses 26 through 31. And as they led him away, they seized one, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren and the wombs that have never bore, and the breasts that have never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry? The shepherd says, Do not weep for me. As Jesus is on the sorrowful way, as he is walking towards Golgotha to be crucified, there are women who are weeping and mourning and crying out, and Jesus says to them, Don't weep for me, but weep for yourselves. We just heard that incredible version of Via Dolorosa, the way of sorrow, the way of suffering, that path of the cross, where Jesus suffers greatly as he walks towards Golgotha, carrying his own cross. What Jesus is telling us is to not weep for him, because his time of suffering is over. And when the time of suffering of Jesus is over, there is a great celebration. And there's an even greater celebration when he returns. But until then, we pick up our own cross. Until then, instead of focusing on the suffering and sorrow of Jesus every single day of our lives all year round, we pause for a moment on Good Friday of Holy Week. Pause for a while this Passion Week to consider this suffering and to weep for him. But it's only a pause, because from here we turn, we celebrate Jesus. We celebrate what comes next in the story with great joy, with song, with dance, with smiles, with embrace. We celebrate what comes after his own Via Dolorosa. But for us, we have some time yet to carry our own cross. And while we don't suffer that eternal separation, we don't suffer that temporary separation, we don't suffer the whipping, the beating, the scourge, the insults, we don't suffer what Jesus suffered, there is a way of a cross for us as well. It is difficult. We still have to remain in this world, in this kingdom, of which he is not the king of this world, but the kingdom of the world that is to come. While we continue to suffer in this broken and sinful world, it is our own path of sorrow and our own path of suffering. And it mirrors his own, betrayed by the world, by people who are close to us, broken and beaten, sorrowful and mourning. It's similar to his own path of sorrow. And if we can join together in carrying a cross, if we can be joined together in our baptism with this carrying of the cross, if we can be joined with his suffering and sorrow, if our tears can mingle with his, if our mourning and our sorrow can be just as his is, well, then the promise of the resurrection of Jesus is ours too. So we join him, not only in just weeping over sorrow and over pain and suffering of this world, but we join him that there is an end to this suffering, that there is only a time, and then after that time, will our stories converge. Our stories become one in the cross and in the resurrection to eternal life.